This week, I'm going to show you how I took a masterboard that I was not happy with and turned them into these 5x7 original pieces. Hi, I'm Christine, the artist behind Arlissa Designs, and I'm happy you're here. Welcome. The pieces I'm showing you here are from a masterboard that I really liked and I wanted to recreate it. And it was the first of the new series Masterboard Monday. I guess because I was focused on filming that I just didn't do my normal thing and I didn't like the way it came out. So as you can see, I chose some new pieces and taped it all back together, and I'm going to try and save this masterboard. If I were going to use really small pieces of this masterboard, for example, an ATC card, which I believe is 2.5 by 3.5, I'd probably leave it the same because I don't really like a lot of detail on something that's small that I'm already going to put things on top of. But because these are going to be 5x7 matted original pieces that will go into my booth, I wanted more contrast. I needed some lighter colors and just brighter colors since I mixed it so much and some of the colors became muddy and I wanted to bring those colors back out. So anyway, I decided to pull out these new pieces and see if I can save it. I don't normally work in sections like this, but since I cut it up already, I can see where each section is. So it's not normally the way that I work, but as you can see, there's always a way to fix things and make them work. And sometimes they end up coming out better in the end when you've struggled and successfully fixed a problem. You learn a lot that way. So I try not to get too upset. And if you'd like to see the full video, it's a long video of me creating this masterboard. I'll put the link in the description, or you can go to my playlist under Masterboard Monday and it's episode number 1. And of course it happens on the first day that I record video 1 of a new series, but that's my life and I'm sharing it with you. So I'm trying to go back and add colorful pieces to each section. And I'm also, the benefit to seeing where the pieces are going to be cut is that I can overlap some of the pieces that I'm putting on top instead of gluing a large piece right in the middle. I want it to look unintentional, intentionally unintentional. Words. Well, it makes sense in my head. Now at this point, I'm remembering how I created the masterboard in the first place, and I liked this masterboard about 3 times when I was creating it, but I kept adding more stuff. And sometimes when you get into it and you're having fun and you're not thinking about it and you just don't want to stop, it's okay, but you have to know that there is a stopping point. And I try and remember that, because it would take me a lot less time to create art if I would learn when it's a good time to walk away. And that's not to say that if you continue working over it after you've gone past a point where you should have walked away, that you can't get it back. But I'm creating art to sell. And one of the things that I struggle with is time and being efficient. So my first goal in creating a project like this is to learn to stop when I'm at a good point. And if I go past that first stopping point, not to get discouraged, continue moving forward and finding a solution and learning and incorporating whatever I've learned into the next project. Because I thought that this masterboard was complete and I already used the matte gel medium as the sealing layer, I'm using it this time as the adhesive to put these extra pieces on because I'm not going to go back over the whole thing again. And normally, because the Mod Podge is cheaper and it's a little thinner and easier to work with in the beginning, I start out with that. And then in my last layer, if I'm going to go over the whole thing, or sometimes I just wait to the end and just seal the entire piece, I use matte gel medium to seal the project and the pieces that I've used Mod Podge on, because Mod Podge will yellow a little bit, and sometimes that doesn't bother me, but the matte gel medium seals it and protects it and keeps it from yellowing. At least that's my experience with it. If you know something different and that's not true, or if you have a different experience, let us know. I love different points of view, different experiences, and even debating at times in a constructive way. That's one of the reasons why I decided to start this channel, because I feel like when people are working together, that we can learn from each other's mistakes and experiences. As long as we all play nicely in the sandbox, as my first grade teacher, Mrs. White, used to say. And she was so right, because sometimes I watch my favorite artist on YouTube, and they will sometimes discuss issues that they've had while working on a project for things that I have not even encountered yet. So before I encounter the same problem, now I already have the solution. That is why I'm so grateful for this community on YouTube. I was really afraid to start my channel because I know there will be people that will be very judgmental and not so nice, but while it's only human to be bothered a little bit by that, I try not to be, because everybody is learning at a different pace in a different order, and I'm just glad that there are so many great artists here on YouTube that I can learn from and speed up my process just by watching them. And luckily for you all, I make a lot of mistakes. I'm going to speed this portion up as we are coming to the end of this rescue mission, and you get the point. And I'm trying to remember while I'm doing this not to go overboard and go past that stopping point, which I need to do right now, as soon as I glue this down. And present me can't remember what past me did, so it'll be a surprise for me as well. Oh my gosh, future me is so excited that I listened. I don't usually do that. I'm glad I stopped. And now I'm just going to remove the tape, and I'll have to carefully cut in between the lines where I've already cut, because I glued over a lot of them and I don't want to tear those pieces off. Now I'll carefully cut. I found it easier to do it from the back side, and it'll be cool to flip them over and see them, even though we already know where they were cut previously. It's always nice to flip them over and see them when they're separated from the rest of the masterboard. Then I can decide how to finish them off. And they look so much better than before. I'm still not 100% thrilled, but just kind of playing around with them with the frame, they definitely look a lot better than they did, in my opinion, anyway. These mats were damaged when I was matting other pieces and made some mistakes, so I always keep a white and a black mat close by that are already damaged, and I don't have to worry about messing them up any further, but they give me a good idea of what the background is going to look like once it's matted. So I play around with them with the mat and get an idea of which direction each piece is going to be, so that then I can decide what I'm going to paint on top of it and kind of highlight some of my favorite parts in the background. So I really love doing collage and then putting portraits over them. I'm trying to learn how to paint really loose and quickly, and so I'm just going to outline these ladies here without adding too many details. Sometimes I think that achieving depth and something that feels like you can walk into the painting, I think that you need to add a lot of details to make it look realistic, and that's what I struggle with, putting too much time and adding too many lines, and sometimes what you don't add is what gives you the effect. So I'm practicing to just stay loose and let the eye of the viewer complete the image. There are several ways that I get my image onto a background like this. Sometimes I just sketch directly onto the piece that I'm working on, but a lot of times I'll create it outside of the project and then transfer it to the project afterwards. In that case, a lot of times I'll make a copy of it and either trace it onto the background, or I love using DaVinci. I'll try and link it in the description, but I love the app because I use my daughters a lot for poses and I can just change their features a little bit, but it's easy to use the DaVinci app on your phone, and it's an overlay of an image through your phone onto the project you're working on, if that makes sense. It's quicker for me to trace an image that I've already created, or even from a photo, to a background like this, instead of struggling with features. And I still practice, and I'm hopefully one day going to get to the point where some of these people that I watch on YouTube that are great at sketching can just knock out a portrait really quick. I have a friend on Facebook that just draws faces all the time and they come out looking beautiful, and I really, really want to learn how to do it without thinking about it and struggling. So I still practice, but in order to make art like this, a lot of times I'll use either DaVinci or trace something that I've already put away that I use over and over again, using tracing paper, or, old school way, put the graphite on the back of the paper and then turn it over and trace it. So just because you don't start from scratch and do an entire sketch of a portrait before transferring it or doing it directly on your piece doesn't mean it's not art. But I do think it's important that you continue to learn to do those things without crutches. For me, anyway, just because I want to master everything. But every artist does things a different way, and that's what makes us all unique. I normally get 6 pieces out of each masterboard, and this time I only got 4. Maybe because I cut it weird, or maybe I used a smaller sheet. I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and check. But I'll have 4 of these, and they're going to go in my painted tree booth. I've only done 5x7s so far because I'm trying to fill the basket. With the mat, they come out to 8.5. Is it 8? Yeah, 8x10 is the final piece. And once I fill the basket in the painted tree booth, I plan on working on my website and putting some of these up there for people who aren't local. But that's going to be a whole process that I'm not looking forward to. One of the things that I want to delegate is the running of my website when I can afford to do that. Baby steps. This piece may not be the best example, but one of the reasons why I love doing these loose outline portraits over collage is because you can place the face over interesting parts and get some cool effects from the background. On my sister's painting, and I'll put the link to that one in the description, I really love the way the background kind of makes it look like the girls are wearing a mask or some kind of makeup. It ended up being a very kind of David Bowie effect, I guess. It's really cool. You have to go back and check those out if you want to see what I mean. Then sometimes you end up with something in the background that's not in the perfect spot. The paper that I used in the background that goes across her head, it was something that I created on the jelly plate, and I had written XOXO on it, and one of the O's is right in the middle of her forehead. To me, that reads as her pineal gland, but I'm not sure that it's relatable to everyone else. And I kind of wish that I would have made her a little bit bigger and let her head go off the top of the page and put her eyes through that spot, but I didn't, and it is what it is, and it's still kind of cool when I'm done. So that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're placing the image over your background, which I normally do, but I missed this, and it's not my favorite piece, but somebody else might like it. You never know. And here's a funny thing that happens to me all the time, which has taught me not to how can I say it, over curate my art pieces, because a lot of times the ones that I'm not happy with are the ones that everyone else loves. So you really don't know what someone else is going to like. So even though I have my favorites in each series, I try not to toss the ones that I'm not 100% happy with, because everybody likes and sees different things. So I've learned to show all of my artwork, and I'm always surprised by the reaction of the people that see all of my pieces. And it's interesting to see who likes the same things I like, and also to see what other people like about the ones that you don't love. That's a lot of words, but you know what I mean. On this one, I did find a way to kind of bring the colors from that strip up top down into the painting a little bit. And I only did that with a couple of them. Two of the ladies in this series have their eyes open, and I added a little bit of that light green to their eyes. And I think that came out cool. Although I'm considering going back and touching them up a bit now that I'm done with them, but you'll see. And I'm not going to go through painting the other two here, because you see the process, and I'm not 100% confident painting in front of people yet. I don't know why. I guess because I'm self-taught, and I don't know, maybe I'm not doing it the right way, but I like to learn on my own first and then go and see how other people create and learn from them. So I'm going to show you next what each piece looks like under their mat. But I'd like to take the time to say that I'm growing here on YouTube, and I really, really appreciate the community that's forming here. Everybody's been so supportive, and I love the comments. If you haven't liked this video yet and you're still here, please do, and subscribe. And if you know someone that would appreciate my style of video, please share. And of course, leave your feedback in the comments. Even though I've been on YouTube for a year, I still consider myself as a new content creator. So I still get really super excited when I get a notification that someone's commented on my video. So for those who have commented already, thank you for that. Okay, here's the one I was just working on, and you see her eyes are green, and I think she looks great under a mat. And this was the first one that I was working on. And then these two you haven't seen yet, but they're actually my favorite. The last one being, this is my favorite one of the series. Here you go, another look. And I hope you enjoyed the video today. I will be back on Monday with Masterboard Monday, and I hope you have a great week. Thanks for watching.